Welcome to the World United. Welcome to the World United.
This leads us now into the portion of the panel discussion. And one of the common themes that I've picked up throughout our discussion here is the theme of meditation. And I want to kind of just start with that and ask from all the various backgrounds that you come from, Reverend Charles, Ruben, Balaram, what would you share is the most important thing to understand about meditation, either from the experiential standpoint or actual implementation of this, or if you were to give one reason why meditation will make an impact in your life, what would you say? What would you share about that?
Well, I'm going to say my teacher was raised in a cave in the Himalayas. He was a scientist and a physician, and I attended the graduate school that he founded, which is now moved to India and is now a major hospital and research center in the foothills of the Shivalik foothills of the Himalayas. And I have been hooked up to machines. I have worked with the breath, all the traditional things. And one of the things that I recall about what he said, he was an acknowledged master of the practice of meditation. And so the thing that he taught us, and I'm sure probably Balaramji will agree with this, or not, is that the technology and learning to relax the autonomic nervous system is different than what true meditation is. Okay? And I have been hooked up to 64-pin EEG and things of this nature, and I have done things that have been taught in the tradition, and kind of confuse the technicians, going, why is your brain in deep dreamless sleep on one side and on the other side it's not, and things of this nature. And these are all things that the technologies can help you to acquire, but guaranteed, from my direct experience, I am not an enlightened master. So there's a difference between relaxing the autonomic nervous system and what the truth of meditation is, that transcends the bounds of our humans' minds' efforts to understand it. And so meditation, again, is just something meditation is a tool, but that's all that it is. The reality doesn't need any tools. It doesn't need our small minds. So that's one of the things that's one of my things about the technology and being trained by scientists and master yogis, and saying, what is it we really need? All these things are helpful, and we need them. Everybody goes by a different path. We need these things, but to understand that meditation is an art to help us to transcend the bounds. And then it's like I'm sure Balaram is familiar with this story. You ride the canoe, you ride the raft over to the other shore, and when you get to the other shore, you just, okay, that's it, and you're on. So anyway, that's my 2 cents about meditation.
Charles is spot on, because there's kind of a misnomer about meditation. The Yoga Sutras of Patanjali tell us very clearly what meditation really is. It's called samadhi. It's where we actually become, or we have a unification with what we're attempting to contemplate upon. And so most people, when they think of meditation, right, they think of sitting in one place and closing their eyes and either concentrating on something, or maybe like a little, technique or something like that. And Charles is absolutely correct. It's about that particular technique is to calm down the automatic nervous system. the autonomic nervous system, and that's actually called dharana in the Yoga Sutras. It means concentration, right? When our brain has a single point that we can focus upon, it allows it to relax. It's not going all over the place. It's either to concentrate on one thing. And then you have the second stage, which is dhyana, right? Which is called contemplation. And then you have the actual meditation, which is samadhi. Now, like Charles, I'm not an enlightened master either. So I can't, in the strict sense of the term, even claim to have ever meditated in my life. I have never achieved the state of meditation. But when most people think of meditation, right, they're thinking of dharana or dhyan. And so in that regards, it is very important to have a system that you use in order to connect with that supreme soul. Because the true achievement of samadhi is not actually up to the practitioner. It's actually up to the mercy of, what we would call the absolute truth, spirit, the overarching consciousness. It descends down and bestows its mercy upon the practitioner, because the practitioner's meditation or practice is essentially his calling or his request that you please remove this illusion that I have of who I think that I am. That's very important. And so in this particular age, according to the Srimad Bhagavatam and other Vedic literatures, it's generally understood that the traditional methods of meditation are very difficult to perform. Like Charles said, his master grew up in the Himalayas, and so he actually had the capabilities to do what the Vedas talk about in a traditional meditative practice, which would be to go somewhere where you're alone, generally away from the general population. You're usually in total celibacy. You have either like a deer skin or a tiger skin or something to insulate you on the ground. You have kusha grass, and you sit in a certain posture, and you concentrate on the Paramatma within the heart. Right? That's one of the general traditions in the Vedas. Well, for man and woman in Kali Yuga today, it's virtually impossible to do that. It's virtually impossible to even find somewhere where you're recluse, find somewhere where you can be completely celibate, find somewhere where you can do all these different requirements for your environment to be able to do traditional meditation properly. And so we generally recommend that chanting is the method, because vibrating that name makes us like what we're concentrating upon. That's the whole purpose of meditation. And I lived, like Charles, I grew up Baptist. And then after that, I lived in most of the major spiritual traditions of today. The Muslim mosque, I lived in a Buddhist temple, I lived in a Vedanta ashram. And one of the misnomers that they talk about is they try to get you to just empty your mind. However, your mind is just an amalgamation of mental objects, so it's not actually possible to concentrate on nothing. The closest thing you can do is concentrate on the image of nothing. You can't actually concentrate on nothing. And so you have to have something with which you're meditating upon. And the understanding is what you're meditating upon is what you become like. So, the goal is to, realize, at least for myself, the goal is to realize the absolute truth. So if we meditate on the absolute truth, because we've been blessed to have so many descriptions and so many accounts of what the absolute truth is, we have that ability to hone in on that. And it says, I was just reading in the Bhagavad-Gita Mahatyamam that those who concentrate on the lotus feet of Lord Hari or Sri Krishna are never in anxiety and have no lamentations. So they're telling us very clearly, those who meditate upon, spiritual truth, on the absolute truth, will be automatically free from anxieties, because Lord Hari is those who, he who delivers those from anxiety. So I'd say Charles is absolutely correct on his description.
So Balaram reminded me of something from the Ishu Upanishad, which is one of my favorite things. And it says, and I paraphrase it. It's not a direct quote because I'm not a Sanskrit scholar, but it's and so my take on it is, oh Lord, please allow me to see past the golden disc that hides the face of reality. So for me, that's what meditation is about, and everything that's contrary to that is keeping me in the golden disc, hiding, what's real. I want to see, and it's not with my eyes, but see beyond the golden disc. I think we should let Ruben talk.
Jai, yeah, you're correct. Absolutely.
Do you have any insights to share regarding meditation, Ruben?
I took my class on meditation from a teacher of transcendental meditation, which was originated by the Maharishi, the guy who either made the Beatles famous or the Beatles made him famous, either way you want to look at it. But in that class, I was told, well, as a practicing attorney, I've had a very tough time focusing and concentrating. And so I told the instructor, I'm having a hard time focusing and concentrating. Strike out a mantra that you can live with and that you feel comfortable with. And he didn't say that I should not share it, but it's something that's very basic. And I think that if it's helpful to somebody, you'll find that it's not even very original. I sit in a position with my eyes closed and I say, I am at peace in my mind, in my body, in my heart, and in my soul. And I repeat that. I repeat that slowly and meaningfully in the hopes that...
Oh, we lost him.
Huh. That was a sudden...
What is true meditation?
We lost you for about 30 seconds.
Oh my God. I don't know what happened.
Yeah, right after you gave us the affirmation.
Really? Okay. Well, what I was closing with was that to get to that point where I think I'm getting to what Balaram you said was true meditation. I'm hoping that I'm getting there, even if you may not have gotten there. And so, yes, that's my small input, my less than 2 cents on meditation. Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, I am a teacher in the Himalayan tradition, and I have been given the honor of being an initiator. So it's something what the TM people would call, but an initiator, and the various mantras that are from all the traditions, and the idea of us preparing ourselves. I have a student, and he said, Balaram, you're like this. He read the Yoga Sutras, a very basic introduction to it, and he said, okay. He said, you're my guru, and I'm kind of going, oh, first, I'm not your guru. The guru's not a person. And then second, this is not a sprint. This is a marathon. Yeah. And my guru said, what you said, Balaram, said, you do 50% of the work, and then divine does 50%. But you have to do your 50%. You have to do your efforts, whatever it is, you do your efforts, and then the divine will. And reminded me of a story, and the story is that it said relating the divine to the divine feminine, and saying that the divine feminine is like she's there, and as long as we're playing with our tinker toys in the living room, she's not there. But as soon as we cry out, Mama's there. You come and she picks you up and she loves you. And this is the thing that we This is the thing that we're lacking with respect to Mother Earth. This is the things that we're lacking with respect to our sisters on the planet, who are 50% of the knowledge on the planet as far as humans is concerned. Okay, so our meditation practice helps us also to come in contact with those parts of ourselves, and it's so fascinating to me that it's kind of glossed over. Anyway.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny you say that. I was in kind of the same boat, as the student that you had, trying to find a guru. Something you realize is that you don't pick your guru; the guru chooses you. Right?
Right.
That's what happened for me, because the guru really lives within the heart, and the story that the Vedas tell us is that Krishna then sends a physical representative to help direct the student towards the Paramatma, or the guru in the heart. Right? That's the real purpose of what's called the Diksha Acharya, what Charles is referring to being an initiator, being the Diksha Acharya, the one who leads by example and who, by his touch, initiates the student into the tradition. So it is very important to have that teacher on in the outward world, and then also having that knowledge, knowing that teacher is also guiding you to look within and to recognize that whatever his instructions are, his or her instructions are the same instructions that are representative of the guru that's been with you throughout your sojourn as a soul, throughout many, many lifetimes within the heart. And that gets into more subtler topics that by having the grace of the Diksha Acharya, he will know when the student is ready to dispel those esoteric truths. But usually philanthropy, like what Ruben is speaking on, is saving the planet. Usually when people get into those topics, they progress towards understanding where the problem is originating. And it's originating due to, according to my tradition, and according to many of them, is due to our lack of knowledge of self, of who we actually are. We don't know. If I knew that I would live forever and this was just like a car, then I would be maintaining it so that I can get around properly. But I wouldn't confuse putting oil in my car as eating a meal, right? I'm not going to get that same enjoyment putting oil in my car than I would eating a meal. In the same manner, my soul's not going to get its same enjoyment doing bodily things as it would feeding the soul through spiritual activity like meditation, like bhajan, like singing and dedicating our mental space to the subtler truths. I consider myself very lucky that I got a part of this group and this panel. This is pretty nice.
Well, I don't believe there are any coincidences, and the more that we share, the more I'm learning, and I believe that we're learning from each other. On the note that you talked about, something that I believe you said earlier, Reverend Crenshaw, meditation helps us come in contact with ourself. So that was another consistent theme, was this topic of the true self and the reconnection with the true self. That was kind of the main thrust of your message there, Balaram, is our true identity. So I would love to hear from each of you. What is the most important thing to understand about the true self, especially to somebody who is completely ignorant of this concept?
I'll jump right in. The best example that I know of, and Balaram will be familiar with this, I'm pretty sure. There have been several great sages all over the world, but there's one particular who talked about this, and I mentioned his experiment that we can do to find this. but more than he has said this. When we are in deep dreamless sleep, it is said that we touch that trueness of ourselves, except we are in blind darkness when we do it. And our task, as we progress, as we evolve, is to be aware that that place is there all the time. We go through the states of waking, dreaming, deep sleep. Those are the three things we transition from the day we are born to the day we die. And there's some stratum upon which those three things ride. And those three things ride on what Balaram addressed as Atman, okay, or our true nature. And the thing is to recognize, as we cycle through those things, to recognize that there's the line that they're cycling on, to come in contact with that line, which is what meditation helps us to do, or increasing the subtlety of our awareness helps us to do, so that we touch the substratum and maintain our status there. That is the what's called in the Yoga Sutras the Sahaja Samadhi. Okay, Asamprajnana Samadhi, Nirvikalpa Samadhi, all the fancy words, but that's, you are there and you recognize that you are all that is, and there's no question. That's the true self. Everything else is tinker toys, per the sages. Again, not being one who is completely stationed in that scenario in this lifetime yet.
Right. Absolutely. And to also, speak on what a great sage said on the topic, Srila Prabhupada wrote in his first publication in North America called Easy Journey to Other Planets. He describes very clearly the difference between the material and anti-material world. And the scientists talk about that. I have some experience. I studied physics in university, and they explained that we have the material world, what we're all familiar with, and then we have the anti-material world, which when joined with matter will create an explosion, right, or create some sort of destruction. And so the inherent name of antimatter is supposed to mean opposite of matter. So Prabhupada goes to explain, well, what is material? Okay, we know that the material is transient, it's temporary, and it's also full of suffering. For example, let's say that I'm hungry, okay? Just by not having food, there's a certain pain that I feel for being hungry. And then I go to eat the food, and as my hunger subsides, to my regular mind, that's enjoyment for me, because now my hunger pain is no longer there. But if I eat too much food, now I will have a different kind of pain. Now a different pain will come by eating too much food. So the food itself is not giving me any pleasure, but it's stopping my hunger, and that's what I'm feeling as pleasure. So that's generally in the material aspect. So in order for something to be called antimatter, it must be completely opposite. Another one of the aspects of matter is that it's full of ignorance, or is that there's generally no true knowledge here. All the knowledge that we have of our regular everyday life, while applicable, is not, again, permanent knowledge. That the knowledge that I have of, let's say, my mother's age, right, that knowledge will change as circumstances change. So antimatter must be completely opposite from that. That means it must be full of knowledge, it must be full of bliss, and it must be permanent. And so the only thing that the scientists fail to do is that they're not completely defining what antimatter is, because they're still treating it as like another piece of matter. However, matter doesn't have any consciousness. Antimaterial must have consciousness. It must, in order for it to be opposite from matter. Obviously, this camera that I have and this bottle doesn't have, sentience to it. So there must be some sort of anti-material element within certain material forms, like the human being, which is giving it this sentience and this ability to feel joy. And so who we are is we originally come from the anti-material world, or what's called the spiritual world. He defines the word jiva in the Sanskrit word as anti-material particle. And it also translates to the individual soul. So by defining what matter is, we can know exactly what antimatter is. And we know that it exists even just simply from our observations of the material universe, as many famous physicists and scientists have confirmed. And so the only next step that we have to take is, instead of using a physical instrument to view that antimatter, we have to use the soul's intuition and the soul's senses and awareness to go within and identify that anti-material element within us, as well as the one that is right next to us, watching, observing, and assisting us in our sojourn.
My turn?
Yes, Ruben. Yes.
Thank you. I'll be brief. I think we're at the hour. It's so famously stated by Polonius to either Hamlet or his cousin, who was going off to university. He said, "To thine own self be true." Those are very famous words in the play Hamlet, and it gave thought for contemplation. What is being true to oneself? I think that is what every individual, every young person going on to university gets to contemplate on. It is, where will I go astray? Where will I go perhaps down the right road? And what is going to be for the betterment of myself and for the rest of the world? That I think was the message that another sage, a literary sage, shared with us when Shakespeare wrote those words. Thank you.
We lost you again.
Oh, no.
I think just the last 10 seconds.
Okay. Okay, well, it was just essentially that this was another sage who is a literary sage, not necessarily a spiritual sage, William Shakespeare.
Right.
He was a sage. That does take us to the end of our session time here. And with that, I would love to give any of our listeners who felt something during any of the presentations an opportunity to follow up and to learn more. So if in 10 to 15 seconds, if somebody wanted to learn more about what it was that you talked about today, is there a website that they can go to? Is there a book that they can read? Where would you direct them? How can they follow up with you? How can they get in contact with you? Reverend Charles, can we start with you?
Well, my books, Pathless Path, God, Grace, Guru, an African American life transformed through yoga and meditation. That's the title of my one book. And the book I co-authored with my wife is EFT for Meditation, which is talking about the emotional freedom techniques and its use in helping us to progress in our meditation practice. You know, us doing our 50% to help us to prepare for the descent of grace, if you will. And if you wanted to contact me, you could contact me at Charles at TFJL. TFJL stands for Tools for Joyful Living. So taptfjl.com.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you so much. Balaram, how can somebody learn more from you?
Yeah, so I do have a business contact number. You can reach me at 817-381-8531. You can text or call that number. I do have some professional services to that number, so you may get my secretary. But just tell them what you want to speak to me about, and she'll reach me. You can also reach me at Balaram, 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 Ramdasa, Balaram at protonmail.com. And
Nice.
the book that I recommend, I do distribute Prabhupada's original 1972 edition of books, unedited. And I have a plethora of books to recommend. One that I'm reading right now is The Bhagavad-Gita Comes Alive by Jeffrey Armstrong. Really great book. And then a classic book, I know we talked about the Beatles quite a few times. The book Chant and Be Happy. It's about all of George Harrison's experiences with the Hare Krishna movement and Srila Prabhupada specifically, and how a what would be considered a normal Westerner or a normal individual approaches and can attain the grace of subtler spiritual living. Those are very highly recommended books.
Oh, wow. Wonderful. Okay. Thank you, Balaram. Truly learned a lot from you today. Thank you. Ruben, how can somebody learn more about you and your message?
Sierra Club, SIERRA, SierraClub.org, will give you all the information on the environmental stuff that I talked about. But for me personally, just go to my personal email address, Ruben, RUBEN 00426 @gmail.com, to talk to anybody. Did you get it? Or did I
Yes,
bug out?
I think we did. We got that before it froze. All right.
Okay, great.
With that, I give my sincere thank you for the time that you spent, all the preparation that you put into being here today, and for sharing your thoughts, your message, your inspiration, and your light. Thank you for helping to improve the world as we come together in this collective consciousness. Thank you, Reverend Crenshaw. Thank you, Balaram Das, and thank you, Ruben Arizmendi. And until we meet again, thank you.
Thank you.
So there's a closing program someplace? He went away.
Yes, well, I do believe that we have a few workshops. I'm going to be teaching a workshop in about an hour and a half, I believe, and then there's a conclusion at the end. So, but I think that's all back on track one.
And do you know if this recording be posted on the same, like where the YouTube is being streamed at right now?
So right now they're only live streaming YouTube with track one. So because we're track two, the only ones watching are the ones who followed this Zoom link. But I do know that they're going to edit and clean up and post these videos on their YouTube channel, which you can find. It's called The World United.
Okay, great. Awesome. I'll be sharing this recording once it's published.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well,
Balaram,
you did a good job.
Where you are. Balaram,
Where
are you located?
Right now I'm located in Fort Worth, Texas, right by Dallas.
Okay. Because I'm looking at you and you're telling me you were a Baptist. I'm kind of, how are you a Baptist with Balaram Das name? So are you're second or third generation here?
In terms of from my Baptist background?
In terms of your ethnicity?
Oh, right. So yeah, I'm my family, my father is Native American, and my mother is also Native, but from South Mexico, and her father was from Germany, right?
Oh.
So I grew up in Atlanta. I grew up in Georgia. That's where I went one of the biggest Baptist churches in the country, First Baptist Church, Woodstock. And And then from there, after moving back to Texas with my family, that's when I started, researching more about the other spiritual traditions. I was also learning a lot about law. And after going through many of them, my master found me in a Bhagavad-Gita study group about 4 years ago. And, that's how I began, taking fully seriously what's called the Sanatana Dharma.
Okay, so I've been on the path. Looks like I've been on the path longer than you are old. So
yeah,
there we go.
I'm 25. Yeah.
Okay.
Who knows how long I've been really doing it, but in this lifetime, it's about 4 years.
Yeah. So in this lifetime, 40 some odd years. But when I met my and I hesitate to use this word except in certain locales, okay? Because the connotation for someone who uses this word for my ethnicity is very negative. But when I met my master,
Right.
I'm going like, haven't we done this before? Haven't we done this before? Like, and so anyway. So
Yeah.
whatever lifetime it is.
And is he native to Varsha, to India also?
Again, he was raised. His name was Swami Rama, and one of his leading disciples was, and who's a renowned scholar of the Yoga Sutras, who we studied with directly. His name was Swami Veda Bharati.
Yeah.
And he was raised in a cave, 100% purebred Indian Himalayas. So there you go.
Yeah.
Wow.
I'm after the same way. He's from the Shruti Marg, right? The what's called from the Rudra Sampradaya of the Bhakti lineage. Yeah, 100%. Grew up in Rajasthan. Just lives in a little room.
So my teacher was at one time the Shankaracharya of the South. You know what Shankaracharya is?
Yeah, Adi Shankaracharya.
Yeah. He was Shankaracharya of the South when he was
Wow.
a kid, and he renounced that and went back to the Himalayas. And we worked at. My wife and I had the opportunity to volunteer at the hospital in the Shivalik foothills, which was designed for anybody. If you or I or Ruben went there, and we have a medical thing, well, you got to pay medical fees. If somebody comes and they're a poor villager from the mountains, they can get anything they want done, and it's totally gratis. And I thought that was just like that, like, hey, that's amazing. You're poor and you need a heart transplant. Well, you get it, and it doesn't cost you anything because you can't pay for it. And that's like just totally amazing. But if you had the money to pay for it, then you pay what the going rate is. But this whole thing of love, serve, remember. That's the deal. Part of the process.
Old Ram Dass quote. Well, Charles, you must feel so blessed to have met, an enlightened being. I feel the same way.
Yeah. I have in my memoir. I'm going like, how did a brother from the south side of Indianapolis, deep in the hood, how did he meet this sage like raised in the Himalayas? How'd that happen? I'm going, no question, son. It's just like good karma, I guess. Previous lives.
Absolutely.
There you go.
Absolutely.
That's what it has to be. Good karma. Good karma. Great karma.
Yeah. Yeah, it has to be. And then
Great.
they choose.
Gentlemen, it's been a pleasure.
Yep.
I'm going to depart and thank you for sharing this panel with me. You obviously have a lot of spiritual depth that I do not quite have yet, but I'm getting there. I'm working on it. And thank you for so much information and so much help in pushing this panel forward to a successful conclusion. That's what I feel has happened here. And so you guys are great. I thank you. Have a great day, great week, great life. Okay. All righty. Bye now.
Okay, Balaramji.
Yeah. Thank you, Charles. I'll be sure to connect with you.
Okay.
I'll be sending you an email.
Okay.